He told the alien woman, "You have great eyes." Got an unexpected reaction. Ethan adjusted the collar of his diplomatic uniform, trying to shake the unsettling feeling that the room itself was watching him. Technically, it was. The walls of the Zalari embassy shimmered with a soft, iridescent glow, bioengineered to subtly monitor movement, temperature, and, if the rumors were true, the emotional state of those inside. Right now, he suspected the walls were whispering to each other. This guy is way too sweaty to be a real diplomat. He cleared his throat, standing a little straighter as the towering emerald-skinned Zalari diplomats filed into the chamber. Their elongated forms moved with an uncanny fluidity, draped in translucent, shifting robes that seemed to ripple like liquid light. Ethan had seen a lot of weird things in his career, but the Zalari never ceased to unnerve him. It wasn't their height, though at nearly 7 feet tall, they made him feel like a scrawny Earth teenager at a basketball tryout. No, it was their eyes. Each Zalari had luminous, gem-like pupils, shifting between intricate fractal patterns. It was like staring into a kaleidoscope that somehow knew all your secrets. And then she entered. Vena. Ethan had read the briefing files, studied the political dossiers, but nothing prepared him for seeing her in person. Unlike the other Zalari, who radiated the composed authority of seasoned diplomats, Vena carried an edge of something else: curiosity, playfulness, trouble. All three, if the subtle smirk on her lips was anything to go by. Her emerald eyes met his, and for some reason, Ethan's brain short-circuited. Maybe it was the swirling irises, or maybe it was the fact that he'd been running on nothing but caffeine and sheer willpower for the past 24 hours. Either way, what came out of his mouth was, "You have great eyes." For a second, there was silence. Not just from Vena, but from everything. The air itself seemed to tighten, as if the universe had just leaned in to hear what would happen next. Vena inhaled sharply. Her pupils expanded, spiraling outward like blooming galaxies. "You see them?" she whispered. Ethan blinked. "See what?" Vena stepped closer, her voice dropping to something almost reverent. No human has ever perceived them before. Before he could ask what the hell she meant, her form shimmered. It wasn't a dramatic transformation, no sci-fi morphing sound effects, no sudden alien tentacle explosion. But it was wrong in a way that made Ethan's stomach lurch. One moment, her skin was smooth and radiant. The next, dozens, no, hundreds, of spectral eyes blinked open across her arms, shoulders, even along the delicate ridge of her collarbone. They weren't grotesque exactly, more like ethereal glowing slits, shifting and refocusing independently. Watching, studying. Ethan's first instinct was to scream. His second instinct was to really scream. He did neither. Instead, he let out a strangled, "Oh, wow, that's a lot of eyes." A slow, eerie hush fell over the room. The other Zalari had frozen, their own pupils shifting into unreadable spirals. Some exchanged glances. Others took measured steps backward, as if Ethan had just announced he was carrying a highly contagious virus. "You are compatible," Vena murmured, extending a hand toward him. Ethan, who had absolutely not signed up for whatever this was, immediately took a step back. "Okay, let's hit pause for a second. Compatible? Compatible how? Like, in a can sit next to each other on a spaceship without awkward small talk way? Or in a, your species and mine are now cosmically intertwined, and I have unknowingly accepted some sort of eldritch marriage proposal way?" Vena tilted her head, studying him. Her many spectral eyes blinked in eerie unison. "Unclear. That's not the word I was hoping for." Before he could launch into a full diplomatic panic, a deep, resonant chime echoed through the chamber. Something between a gong and a pulsating hum, felt more in the bones than in the ears. The Zalari delegates straightened, their posture sharpening. Ethan's translator implant buzzed slightly, feeding him a delayed interpretation. "Protocol invocation, ancient rite of the first perception has been activated," which frankly sounded way above his diplomatic pay grade. A robed Zalari elder took a step forward, their voice low and solemn. "The human has seen. It is written. He must stand trial." Ethan, already regretting every life choice that had led to this moment, let out a nervous laugh. Ha 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 ha, right, a trial. That's probably just a cool Solari way of saying, let's have a friendly chat over tea, right? Vena did not blink. Well, she did, but with about 50 different eyes at once, which was significantly worse. No, she said simply. Ethan groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. Of course not. A pair of Zalari guards, tall, shimmering, and very serious-looking, moved to flank him. He raised his hands slowly, trying to project a level of diplomatic calm he absolutely did not feel. Okay, let's just take a breath here. I didn't mean to, perceive whatever I perceived. Can't we all just pretend this never happened? Vena's expression softened slightly, a glimmer of amusement in her eyes. That is not how our laws work. Well, our laws say I should have a lawyer present for this kind of thing. The robed elder regarded him impassively. Your laws are irrelevant. Ethan sighed dramatically. Yeah, figures. As the guards began escorting him toward an unknown fate, he glanced at Vena. Any chance this trial ends with me getting a complimentary drink and a sincere apology for the misunderstanding? Vena smiled. Unlikely. Fantastic, Ethan muttered, really feeling the whole interstellar diplomacy thing right now. And with that, he was led deeper into the Zalari embassy, toward a fate he did not understand. Ethan sat in what he could only assume was an alien courtroom, though it looked more like the inside of a bioluminescent jellyfish. The walls pulsed softly, translucent membranes shifting colors like a living mood ring. Whether that mood was ominous or mildly annoyed, he couldn't tell. He shifted uncomfortably on the organic-looking chair that had risen from the floor to accommodate him. It was warm and slightly damp. He tried not to think about that. Across from him, a semicircle of high-ranking Zalari elders observed him with unnerving stillness. Their kaleidoscopic eyes swirled in fractal spirals, shifting colors and patterns Ethan suspected meant something profound, like a cosmic Morse code. His translator implant, unfortunately, was about as useful as a broken toaster. Vena stood beside him, a picture of composed elegance despite the fact that she had dozens of spectral eyes watching him at all times. Ethan had decided to just not think about that for now. The tallest elder, draped in what looked like living silk that rippled with unreadable glyphs, finally spoke. The human has seen, the elder intoned. The human didn't mean to, Ethan corrected. In my defense, you guys have zero warning signs about unexpected reality shifts. A smaller elder to the left let out a sound that might have been a scoff, or a hiccup. Ethan wasn't sure. Vena shot him a glance that very clearly said shut up before you accidentally trigger another ancient rite. The trial of the eyes must commence, the elder continued, ignoring Ethan's commentary. It is the only path forward. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. Okay, yeah, so about that. Just for clarification, when you say trial, do you mean like cool philosophical test of wisdom trial? Or more of a, oops, we liquefied the human trial? Vena hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough to deeply concern him. The trial will test whether you are truly attuned to the deeper sight, she said. Whether your perception is a fluke or something greater. Ethan didn't like how she'd phrased fluke. One of the elders gestured, and a section of the floor rippled open like liquid glass, revealing a circular chamber below. A soft hum filled the air as the walls of the chamber began to shimmer, refracting light in dizzying patterns. It looked uncomfortably like the kind of place people walked into and did not walk out of. Ethan crossed his arms. Okay, counteroffer. Instead of testing whether I'm some sort of magical human anomaly, how about we just, I don't know, forget this happened? I'll file an official report saying the Solari have very cool, very normal eyes, and we all move on with our diplomatic lives. Vena exhaled through her nose, which Ethan was fairly certain was the Zalari equivalent of trying very hard not to smack him. The trial is not optional, Ethan groaned. It never is it? The tallest elder extended a hand. Step forward, seer. Ethan flinched. Whoa, seer? That sounds way too official. It is your title now, the elder said simply. Can I get a different one? Something less ominous? Like, I don't know, that guy who saw too much and wants to go home? No response. Vena placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. Ethan, he sighed. Fine, I'll do the trial, but if I end up spiritually evaporated or turned into some kind of cosmic ghost, I am going to haunt the hell out of all of you. With that, he stepped into the chamber. The moment his feet touched the ground, the walls shifted. Not physically, more like they had never been walls at all, just the illusion of boundaries. Space unfurled around him like an unfolding flower, revealing something else beneath. Shapes, colors, patterns too vast for human thought. It wasn't just sight, it was understanding, raw and unfiltered. He felt the weight of 1,000 timelines pressing against his mind. And then he saw himself, or rather versions of himself, rippling possibilities. A man who had never stepped foot in this chamber, a man who had never spoken to Vena, a man who had said nothing, had looked away, had not seen. And the other thing, something watching. Not just him, not just the Zalari, something that had always been watching. Ethan staggered back, gasping. His vision snapped back to reality. The chamber's walls solidified, and the hum in the air dissipated. Vena was already at his side, her hands gripping his arms. Ethan! He looked up at her, wide-eyed. I saw something else, he whispered. Something beyond even you. The room fell into absolute silence. The elder's many eyes narrowed in unison. Vena's expression shifted from curiosity to something far more unsettling. Fear. Ethan had seen a lot of weird things in his life. Once, during a diplomatic conference on Titan, he'd accidentally walked in on a sentient gas cloud giving a PowerPoint presentation. Another time, he'd watched a Martian bartender juggle 6 drinks with their prehensile tongue, but nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the sensation of an entire species staring at him like he'd just announced he could hear colors. Vena's grip on his arm tightened, not painfully, but enough to make it clear that whatever had just happened was not normal. You saw what? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. Ethan swallowed, still trying to steady himself. Something, watching, not just me, not just you guys, everything. The tallest elder took a slow step forward. Describe it. Ethan shook his head. I can't. It wasn't like looking at a thing. It was like the concept of being seen was staring back at me. A low murmur rippled through the gathered Zalari. Their eyes, normally hypnotic in their constant shifting, had synchronized into a single, identical pattern, a silent signal Ethan didn't need a translator for. They were scared. Vena turned to the elders. He should not have been able to perceive beyond the veil. One of the smaller elders, whose robes shimmered like oil on water, took a measured breath. And yet, he has. Ethan let out a dry laugh, still a little dizzy. Cool, love that for me. So just to be clear, am I like spiritually radioactive now? Is this one of those things where I start glowing and hearing voices before I ascend or melt? The oil-robed elder gave him a long, unreadable look. Unknown, Ethan groaned. Fantastic. Love the clear answers. Vena turned back to him, her expression unreadable. We need to leave. That got Ethan's attention. Wait, leave where? Am I not on trial anymore? Did I win? Is there, like, a prize? No, she said, already pulling him toward the chamber's exit. Something is wrong. The other elders didn't object. In fact, they seemed relieved, which only made Ethan more nervous, because when the ancient, hyper-intelligent species that saw across dimensions started acting weird, that was a very bad sign. Vena moved fast, her long stride forcing Ethan to jog just to keep up. They wound through the embassy's corridors, which pulsed with soft bioluminescence, casting eerie, shifting shadows. Okay, Ethan panted. Someone needs to explain what's happening, preferably in a way that doesn't involve the words cosmic doom or irreversible existential rupture. Vena didn't stop walking. The veil is what separates our perception from what lies beyond. The Zalari evolved to see deeper than most, but even we are not meant to see past it. You should not have been able to. Ethan frowned. Well, I did, which means either I'm some kind of rare human anomaly or... He stopped. Vena finally turned to face him. Or, Ethan exhaled slowly, or something on the other side wanted me to. For the first time since meeting her, Vena hesitated. That was not comforting. Before she could respond, the corridor lights flickered. The embassy's organic walls let out a low, almost imperceptible hum, like a deep, distant heartbeat. Ethan's stomach dropped. That's new, right? Vena's pupils dilated. We need to get off-world, now! They barely made it to the docking bay before things got weird. The moment they stepped inside, the entire chamber shifted. It wasn't a physical change, more like reality itself hiccuped. For half a second, everything doubled. The walls, the ships, the air, even Vena. Ethan felt himself split, two separate versions of him existing in the same place for a single, nauseating instant, before slamming back into one reality. He stumbled. Oh, hell no, nope, absolutely not. I did not sign up for quantum horror today. Vena steadied him. Her hands were cold. Not just cool to the touch, cold like she'd just been standing outside of time itself. The docking bay, which had been filled with Zalari pilots in attendance a moment ago, was now empty. Vena cursed under her breath. It's already begun. Ethan rubbed his temples. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's just pretend I understand what that means. She didn't answer. Instead, she led him toward one of the sleek, iridescent ships, a Zalari diplomat-class cruiser, built for speed and stealth. The entrance hatch slid open, and Ethan followed her inside, still trying to process what the hell was happening. Where exactly are we going? He asked as she activated the ship's controls. Vena's many eyes flickered in synchronized unease. To someone who might have answers. Ethan buckled himself in. And by someone, you mean... She hesitated, just long enough to make him nervous. The only other being to ever see beyond the veil. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Ethan let his head fall back against the seat. Oh, great! A sequel! The ship cut through the fabric of space like a needle through silk, silent and sleek, its iridescent hull reflecting the cold emptiness beyond. Ethan sat strapped into his seat, arms crossed, trying not to think too hard about the fact that reality had glitched back there. So, he said, breaking the silence, are we flying toward a wise and benevolent sage? A hermit who's going to give me a glowing sword and tell me I'm the chosen one? Maybe an ancient oracle who speaks in riddles? Vena kept her eyes, all of them, on the ship's instruments. Not exactly, Ethan sighed. Of course not. The ship's navigation system pulsed with unreadable glyphs as they neared their destination. Outside, a massive structure loomed, something between a station and a living organism, floating at the fringes of known space. Its architecture was alien even by Zalari standards, a twisting mass of shifting shapes and faintly glowing filaments. Ethan frowned. That does not look like a place where people live. Vena didn't respond right away. Instead, she exhaled slowly and said, because it isn't. The ship docked with a barely perceptible shaka, and the hatch slid open. The air inside the station smelled different, like metal and something faintly organic, like the breath of a sleeping beast. Ethan followed Vena down a dim corridor, his gut screaming at him to turn around and leave. But that wasn't really an option anymore, was it? At the end of the corridor, a door pulsed with a slow, rhythmic light. Vena pressed a hand to the interface, and the door slid open. Inside, surrounded by shifting strands of something that looked like liquid data, sat the only other being to ever see beyond the veil. Ethan had expected something terrifying, a cosmic entity, an ancient, wrinkled sage, maybe a guy with a lot of ominous robes. What he got was a very tired-looking human. The man glanced up, blinking blearily at them. His hair was a mess, his beard uneven, and he had the distinct air of someone who hadn't had a good night's sleep in years. Oh, the man muttered. They found another one. Ethan blinked. Another what? The man gestured vaguely. Another idiot who saw too much. Ethan turned to Vena, incredulous. You could have led with that. Another human? This whole time I thought I was the first. Vena's expression was unreadable. He left long before my time. The records are vague. The man snorted. Yeah, because the Zalari like to pretend I don't exist. Makes it easier than dealing with the truth. He stretched, groaning as something in his back cracked. Name's Malcolm, by the way. Ethan sat down across from him. Okay, Malcolm. What the hell did I see? Malcolm rubbed his temples. The thing about the veil is, it's there for a reason. The universe is not supposed to be perceived in its entirety. There are things, big, old, hungry things, on the other side. They don't notice us because we're ants on the sidewalk. But the second you see them, Ethan swallowed. They see me. Malcolm nodded grimly. Vena tensed. Then we need to close the connection. Break whatever link has formed. Malcolm sighed. It's not that simple. The moment you acknowledge something like that, it leaves a mark. A kind of metaphysical fingerprint. You can't just scrub it away. Ethan groaned. Fantastic. So I'm, what? A walking cosmic beacon? More like a blinking light, Malcolm said. They haven't fully noticed you yet, but they will. Ethan slumped back, running a hand through his hair. Great. So my options are get eaten by space gods or... Malcolm studied him for a long moment. Then finally he smirked. Or you learn how to blink back. Ethan blinked. I'm sorry, what? Malcolm stood, stretching. You see now. That means you have a choice. You can sit around waiting to get devoured, or you can start looking deeper. Because the thing nobody ever considers is, if we can see them, what else can we do? Ethan exhaled, his mind racing. The past few days had been a whirlwind of revelations, but this was something new. Vena placed a hand on his shoulder. Ethan, he turned to her. She searched his face, her expression unreadable. Then after a long pause, she said, What do you want to do? Ethan thought about it, about the life he'd had before, about how small he used to feel in the vastness of space. Now, though? Now he'd been given a glimpse of something bigger, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't just afraid of the unknown. He was curious. Ethan grinned. You know what? I think I'd like to learn how to blink. Malcolm let out a tired laugh. Well then, welcome to the club, kid. And somewhere beyond the veil, something blinked back.